why, in man's reason, fantasy may be perceived as reality. My dear and kind grandfather, will you please explain to me, if only in a general way, why it is that the beings on the planet Earth take the ephemeral for the real? To this question of his grandson, Beelzebub replied, on the planet Earth, this particularity in the psyche of the three-brained beings arose only during later periods, and it arose only because their essential part, formed in them as in all three-brained beings, gradually allowed the other parts of their total presence to perceive every new impression without fulfilling what is called being Parktolg duty, that is to say, merely as such impressions are generally perceived by one or another of their independent localizations known as being centers. Or, to put it in their language, they believe everything anybody says, instead of believing only what they have been able to verify by their own sane deliberations. In other words, only what they have come to as a result of confronting and evaluating the data already deposited in them, which have given rise to all sorts of different conceptions in each of their localizations of divers nature. In general, a new conception is crystallized in the presence of these strange beings only if Mr. Smith speaks of somebody or something in a certain way, and then if Mr. Brown says the same, the hearer is quite convinced that it is just so and could not possibly be otherwise. There are never crystallized in them any subjective convictions of their own, formed by their own logical deliberations, as in general is proper to three-brained beings, but instead only those convictions are crystallized that depend exclusively upon the opinions of others. This strange trait of their psyche, that of being satisfied with whatever Smith or Brown says, without trying to know more, became rooted in them long ago, and now they no longer make the least effort to know anything that can be understood solely by their own active reflection. It must be said here that the blame for this lies neither in what was implanted in their ancestors, nor its consequences, which were crystallized in them because of a mistake on the part of certain sacred individuals, and which later began to pass by heredity from generation to generation. No, they themselves are to blame for it, on account of the abnormal conditions of external ordinary being existence they gradually established, and which have progressively fostered in their common presence what has now become their inner evil god, called self-calming. But you will understand all this very well for yourself later on when I give you, as I promised, more information about the planet that has taken your fancy. In any case, I strongly advise you to be most careful in the future when you refer to the three-brained beings of that planet, not to offend them in any way. Otherwise, with what may the devil not joke, as they say, they might hear about your insulting them, and to use another of their expressions, lay you by the heels. There's no harm in recalling here another wise saying of our dear Mullah Nasr ad-Din. What on earth will happen next? A flea might swallow an elephant.